Welcome back to the Ben Mulroney Show, and it's not often that we get to speak to a premier in Canada. It's not often that a premier stops by the Ben Mulroney Show, but sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Please welcome to the Ben Mulroney Show, the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. Welcome to the show.
So nice to finally meet you. I've talked to you several times. It's nice to meet you face to face. I'm glad to be here.
So let's talk about why you're in Toronto.
We're doing I call it a mission all through Eastern Canada. So I started off at the Montreal Chamber of Commerce, talking about the ways in which Quebec and Alberta can work together to develop out our respective economies.
How did that resonate?
Very well.
Yeah.
And I noticed it because I came here in April, and that's when I realized that we already have a lot of business in Quebec, from Quebec into Alberta with the Caisse de dépôt et placement. Yeah. They fund a lot of enterprises in Quebec. We just announced that CAE is going to be doing pilot training, another great Quebec-based aerospace company that also is in defense. And I think there's going to be lots more options. So National Bank, I was a little disappointed that they came and scooped up one of our banks, Canadian Western Bank, but it's actually been a really wonderful connector.
Oh, good.
Because they bought into Alberta because they believe there's so much opportunity there. And that to me has been the whole point of this mission. I did an event in Ottawa, did an event earlier with your Eurasia Group in Toronto. It's the same message. We really should be talking about how we bring the supply chain home to Canada.
Okay, so why don't you give me that message? What did you share that seems to have resonated across central Canada?
I can tell you what I've learned. It seems like, I don't know who it was, but sometime 20 years ago, someone decided that Canada didn't need to be a resource-based or manufacturing-based economy. And as a result, we started moving more and more towards services, which is fine. But here we are now full circle, where most of the services are going to be AI generated and driven. And AI requires a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. And AI also requires a lot of manufactured parts. And so we're sort of scratching our heads saying we want to do all of this aspirationally, but we're so reliant on the United States for our supply chain. So I want to see if there's a way that we can bring some of that home, whether it's in Alberta or whether it's Ontario and Quebec. So I think what came out of it is that the chambers are going to take the lead on trying to get myself and Doug Ford and Francois Legault together in a room to say, let's identify the things we need and let's identify how we're going to encourage our respective businesses to develop that.
So I'm glad you mentioned there was consensus when Donald Trump got elected, more or less consensus as to what we as a nation need to do. Broad strokes, right? We had to tear down interprovincial trade barriers. We had to start building out our resource sector, and more or less everyone started buying into that. Does it feel like that's slowing down?
Well, I believe my fellow premiers and the Prime Minister when they said that they wanted to do all of those things. It's part of the reason why we've decided to be a proponent on accelerating the idea of a West Coast BC pipeline. We know that we need that if we're going to open up new markets. Yeah. The best place to do that is in Asia. They already receive some of our product through Trans Mountain. The project that should have gotten built that got canceled by the predecessor government of Justin Trudeau, Northern Gateway was approved and they canceled it. So we figured that this is a time to restart that conversation, and we're going to see whether or not there have been a lot of people wrapping themselves in the Canadian flag. Yeah. And now we actually see whether or not they're willing to walk that talk. I am. I've been here for exactly that reason. Let's find ways to work together. I promote every project of all of my peers, all of the premiers. I don't think there's a single one that I've opposed, and I would just hope that we'd be able to get that same consensus.
All right. Projects of national importance. That's the buzzword of the day. Yeah. And we have not yet seen a pipeline, and it wasn't in the first tranche. We're expecting the second tranche before the Grey Cup. Mm-hmm. How does it work? Are you in contact with that office? How much do you know before we find out? Or is it sort of like the announcement of who wins American Idol? We all find out at the same time.
There's a few things I'd say. I mean, what I'm pleased by is that we've seen that the Prime Minister chose to put the Major Projects Office in Calgary. Yeah. And he chose to put Don Farrell at the helm of it, who is somebody who actually has experience building a pipeline to the BC coast. Yeah. So I think that she already has an incredible amount of credibility among the business sector in Alberta. I count her as a mentor and advisor. She's advised me on many things over the years. Okay. But I would say our relationship right now is with the Prime Minister. Yeah. That we need to have an agreement that goes beyond a particular project. He is very keen on the Pathways project, as are our oil sands companies. It's a project to get them carbon neutral by 2050.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. That there seems to be a grand bargain that needs to be struck here.
Yes.
And to Mark Carney's credit, I mean, he really did explain. As much as people said, "Why aren't you moving? Why aren't you moving?" He said, "There's a lot of stuff that needs to get done." Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are seeing that now. But look, the Liberals have their vision, and Conservatives have a different vision of how to be environmentally conscious, for example. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. So are you prepared to? It's like a horse trading sort of situation, right?
I think the way I've looked at it is that if you want to spend $10 to $20 billion on this carbon abatement project, which is what Pathways is, you need a new revenue source to be able to pay for that. And if you can get a brand new 1 million barrel a day bitumen pipeline to new markets, then that can generate $20 billion a year. Yeah. So that becomes a long-term revenue stream to be able to do that. The thing is, no one will fill that pipeline unless we get rid of some of the bad laws. The emissions cap, net zero power regs, greenwashing bill, I could go on. But those are the reasons why we package those together.
How frustrating is it when you hear rational, sensible people say, well, no one from the private sector has stepped up yet. It's like, well, obviously no one from the private sector stepped up yet. It's because the regulatory situation is garbage.
Yes. Well, let's play an alternative pathway out. Yeah. What if one of the pipeline companies that we have at the table advising us, what if they had gone out and said we're going to be the proponent? They would have faced the same reaction. Yeah. And so we're trying to make the point that either this is a turning point for Canada and we're going to work together to get these major projects built, or the answer is going to be no. Yeah. And if it's no, then I think that says a lot about our country, and it says a lot about the promises that have been made by our politicians. So I'm taking everybody on faith here that they really do want to work together. And I guess we'll find out pretty shortly whether or not that's true. So
you're prepared to support this carbon abatement program. Yeah. What if the Liberals come to you and say, look, between us, we're gonna authorize a pipeline, but we need you to do more on the environmental file? The question, how far would you be willing to go for whatever they want in order to get what you need?
What I would say is that the previous iteration of the Liberals got too focused on how to get there as opposed to the final destination. And I think that Canada signed on, along with other countries, a plan to get to net zero by 2050. Yeah. So if you've got a 25-year time horizon, there's a lot that you can do. Yeah. Just dial back 25 years ago. We didn't even have iPhone, I don't think.
No, we did not.
Ago. So think of how transformative technology has been. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what will be created between now and 2050, but I know something will. Yeah. The problem is if you keep stepping in, trying to micromanage the solutions, saying you've got to have it done by 2026 or 2030 or 2035, the only option you're leaving people if the technology doesn't become available is to shut in. So that's what we're trying to say. Have a longer time horizon, because I'll tell you that the vision, I would say, of those who were in the Trudeau Liberal government was that they felt that Alberta's solution should be wind, solar, and batteries.
Yes.
That's what they thought. And we just saw with the failure of the power grid in Spain and Portugal that there's only a certain amount of unreliable energy you can have on the grid before you end up with catastrophe. Yeah. And we've already had some lack of reliability in our system. We've had about nearly 20 near failures of our power grid. So we have to have a better balance there. But we have a different approach. We say if the issue is emissions reduction, then let's transition away from emissions. Yeah. So the Pathways project has three elements to it. One is a carbon capture, utilization, and storage pipeline. Mm-hmm. And this is technology that is proven. Yeah. We have used CO2 for enhanced oil recovery for decades. Yeah. And so this is not unusual to do. The problem is it's not perfect. The second part is how do we bring in additional types of energy? That's why we're looking at nuclear, geothermal, hydroelectric, and interties. That's the second part of it. And the third is
give me the third one.
The third one is last mile, direct air capture, and we're pioneering that as well. So don't micromanage how you get there. Yeah. Let's agree on the destination and let technology do the work. All right. Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to stay. If you're going to stick around, we've got more conversation with the Premier of Alberta herself. Danielle Smith is in conversation with Ben Mulroney on The Ben Mulroney Show. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.